So it turns out that the first ever chowder recipe was written as a poem in the 1700s. So today, I'm embracing my inner literary critic to see if the first chowder has stood the test of time and to learn how the dish evolved into the creamy delight that we know today. The earliest written chowder recipe in English, that popped up in 1751 in the Boston Evening Post. It involved layering fish, onions, pork, fats, spices and crushed ship's biscuits like it was a lasagna, then putting it into a dish that was less soupy comfort and more seafood trifle. Before we delve too deeply into literary criticism or the history of chowder, it's time to cook. The first line of our chowder poem goes, "First lay some onions to keep the pork from burning, because in chowder there can be no turning. So in a large heavy bottomed soup pot, melt oil and butter over a medium heat. Then add one large chopped onion and cook gently until softened but not browned. This forms your non-stick, non-turnable base. Then lay some pork in slices very thin, thus you in chowder always must begin." Thin sliced pork feels very easy to interpret as bacon, so I'm going to give my chowder a flavour booster by pre-frying my bacon, because flavour beats flabby bacon any day. Lay the bacon down on the bed of onions. Next, lay some fish cut crossways very nice, so I'm taking some cod fillets and smoked haddock for flavour. Lay them gently down on top of the bacon. Our poem then tells us to season with salt, pepper and spice. I don't think that a dish for sailors would have had a lot of expensive spice, so I'm sprinkling in a hint of mustard powder, given that mustard seeds would have been widely grown throughout France and England where this dish originated. We're then told to add parsley, sweet marjoram, savoury and thyme. I forgot the marjoram, and if like me you can't find savoury, just double up on the thyme. To many, this recipe will probably bear little resemblance to chowder as they know it. And that is because it's had a long and meandering history. Let's rewind. Chowder likely got its name from the French word chaudière, a big old cooking pot, although some have also pointed to the Latin word caldaria, which was a place to warm things. The dish likely originated among fishermen in the Brittany region of France and coastal England during the 17th and 18th centuries. When fishermen returned from the sea, they would throw some of their catch into a cooking pot, and it would be shared within the community. Everyone chucked in what they had, like a big old maritime potluck with less potato salad and more cod heads. Over time, English settlers then brought their own fish stew game across the Atlantic, and somewhere along the way, the two collided and chowder as we know it was born. Potatoes snuck into chowder sometime in the 18th or 19th century, probably because they were cheap, filling and didn't complain when boiled alive. The potatoes also thickened the soup and helped stretch meagre ingredients into a meal that you could serve your crew without a mutiny. Then as chowder sailed down the east coast, it evolved. In New England, local clams made it creamy. In Florida, settlers added peppers. In Bermuda, some splashed rum into it, because of course they did. And then tomatoes happened. When Italian and Portuguese immigrants in New York introduced tomatoes to the pot, the result was Manhattan clam chowder, a red broth chowder, which in the eyes of New England purists was culinary treason. There was outrage, there were protests. There was even a bill proposed in the Maine legislature to outlaw tomatoes in chowder. Imagine being so mad about a tomato that you start a rally. So whether it's red, white or spiked with rum, chowder's journey is basically one long game of what happens if we throw this in the pot too? The next step calls for biscuits, which means we need to make some hardtack. Hardtack, or ship's biscuits, were a crucial survival food for sailors in the 17th century. They were durable, dry, could last for years, and they were so rock hard they required soaking in beer or soup to be edible. So in a large bowl, mix together 250 grams of plain flour, then add in a teaspoon of salt. You could also add in any herbs or spices of your choosing here, but I don't think 17th century sailors had stashes of coriander seeds lying about, so we're keeping this simple. Add to the mix 120 ml of water and 15 grams of unsalted butter, then mix until a stiff, slightly dry dough forms. If it's too dry to hold together, add water a tablespoon at a time until it just comes together. Lightly flour your work surface and roll the dough out to about ½ centimeter in thickness. Cut it into squares and then using a skewer, prick holes across the surface of each biscuit. This helps dry them out thoroughly and prevents puffing. Then bake at 190 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes until lightly golden. Then reduce the oven down to 90 degrees and continue baking for another 30 minutes until you are greeted with some very uninspiring ship's biscuits. We need to let them cool completely on a wire rack until they're dry, hard and crisp. True to tradition, but safer for modern molars. Our chowder poem continues. Thus your foundation laid, you will be able to raise a chowder high as the Tower of Babel. So it's getting biblical. For by repeating over the same again, you may make chowder for 1,000 men. I'm just feeding little old me here, so no need to rinse and repeat. Once you've got enough, we're told to add a bottle of wine and enough water to cover. I imagine this step is going to make chowder purists balk, but I'm pouring in 250 ml of red wine. I'm also thinking that it's going to be bland as hell if I smother this with water now. So given that I don't have any fish bones to flavour the stock, I'm going to add in some pre-made fish stock instead of water. Bring it to a gentle simmer over low heat and cook for about 15-20 minutes. Now the time has passed, the poem tells us you'll have a mess which some call omnium gatherum. In other words, you've got yourself a pretty ugly soup, so it's time to invite your shipmates over for dinner. Okay, chowder. I should probably say at this point, I've never actually tried chowder before. This smells really good though, it just smells like a really tasty fish stew. Instantly I get some bone. I didn't bone the fish. Always bone your fish. It's really tasty, it's really salty from the bacon. The red wine is confusing me a little bit. Not sure about red wine with fish. Ugh. That was the ship's biscuit. They're pretty disgusting. Okay, so the hardtack is a miss. I'm really loving the smoked haddock in it. It's pretty unrecognisable from most chowders that people serve today. However, it's really tasty. Maybe take out the red wine, definitely take out the ship's biscuit. But yeah, give me some rustic bread and I'd lap all of this up.